The shuttle descended slowly through the blue skies of Thalara. Captain Elias Grant pressed his hand against the window as the view opened beneath him. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Forests of crystal trees stretched across the horizon, their branches glowing faintly in the sunlight. Between them, shining rivers reflected the colors of the sky, and great structures rose like towers of silver and green. This was the royal capital of the Thalari, an ancient and powerful alien race. To humans, they were still mysterious. Some saw them as dangerous, some as allies, and many feared that they could never be understood. But Elias had come here with a purpose, to bring peace, or at least the hope of it. As the shuttle landed on a platform shaped like a great flower, he straightened his uniform and took a deep breath. The door opened, and a rush of warm air filled with strange scents brushed against him. Waiting at the edge of the platform were soldiers in ornate armor and tall spears. Their insect-like bodies glistened with shades of emerald and bronze. Their eyes, faceted and shining, regarded him with caution. At the center of the group stood a figure taller and more majestic than the rest. Queen Seralith, ruler of the Thalari, was unlike any being Elias had ever met. Her body was slender yet strong, her movements graceful as if every step was part of a dance. She wore a crown of woven crystal and living vines that pulsed softly with light. Her gaze was deep, almost unreadable, but not unkind. Elias bowed slightly, careful not to break human custom, yet showing respect. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice steady. The Queen inclined her head, her voice carrying both power and calm. "Captain Elias Grant of Earth, welcome to Thalara. May your steps here bring no shadow." Elias nodded. "I come with the hope of light, Your Majesty." Those words, though simple, seemed to please her. She gestured for him to follow. The soldiers formed a protective circle as they began their walk toward the palace. The palace itself was a wonder. Built into the side of a mountain, it looked as though nature and architecture had been woven together. Crystalline spires rose from the stone, vines and flowers covering their surfaces, while streams of water ran through carved channels in the floors. The air hummed with the sound of hidden mechanisms, both mechanical and organic, as if the entire palace was alive. Elias was guided through vast halls and shining corridors until they reached a garden that seemed untouched by time. The Queen had chosen this place to honor the beginning of their talks. Trees spread their branches overhead and blossoms floated gently in the air. Pools of glowing water reflected the sky, and small creatures with wings of light flitted between the leaves. "This is the Garden of Dawn," Queen Seralith explained. "It is where peace is first spoken, where enemies may become allies." Elias walked beside her, keeping his hands folded behind his back. He felt the eyes of the alien guards watching him carefully, but he ignored them. His focus was on the Queen. He had studied her people before coming here, their customs, their history, their long wars with one another. But seeing her in person was different. There was a strength in her that went beyond titles and crowns. As they walked along the path, she asked him questions about Earth, its oceans, its skies, its people. Elias answered patiently, describing the blue seas, the green forests, and the restless spirit of humanity. "Your kind builds quickly," she said thoughtfully. "You spread across the stars as though they were rivers waiting to be crossed. Do you seek only to conquer them?" Elias shook his head. "Not conquer. Understand. Survive. We want to find our place among the stars without losing who we are." The Queen regarded him silently for a moment, her eyes unreadable. Then slowly she nodded. "Perhaps we are not so different." But as they reached the heart of the garden, the air suddenly shifted. Elias felt it before he saw it, a ripple of tension, a shadow among the branches. The hairs on his neck stood on end. His training as a soldier had taught him to trust such instincts. A faint whistle cut the silence. Elias turned just in time to see something streaking. Through the air, a black arrow tipped with a glowing green liquid. It was aimed directly at the Queen's chest. Without thinking, Elias moved. His body acted faster than his mind. He threw himself between the Queen and the arrow. The impact was sharp, a burning pain exploding in his upper arm as the arrow buried itself deep. His teeth clenched as the poison spread like fire through his veins. But he stayed on his feet, planting himself firmly in front of the Queen. The garden erupted in chaos. The alien guards shouted, their spears flashing as they searched the shadows. Another arrow flew, striking the ground near a fountain. Then a third, but this one was blocked by a guard's shield. "Protect the queen," voices cried out in the alien tongue. Elias swayed slightly, gripping the shaft of the arrow in his arm. His vision blurred for a moment, but he refused to fall. He turned, meeting the queen's gaze. For the first time since he had met her, he saw true shock in her eyes. "You why?" she asked softly, almost to herself. "Instinct," Elias managed through gritted teeth. The guards rushed into the trees, and moments later there were the sounds of struggle, shouts, the clash of steel, the screech of captured attackers. Elias could barely hear it. The poison was spreading, heavy and cold now, dragging him down. He stumbled slightly, but the queen's hand steadied him. Her touch was surprisingly gentle, her clawed fingers cool against his burning skin. "Healer," she commanded, her voice ringing like a bell. Two alien attendants rushed forward, carrying small, glowing vials. They knelt beside Elias, working quickly to slow the spread of the venom. Strange liquids were poured onto the wound, glowing threads of light weaving over his skin. The pain eased slightly, though exhaustion remained. As the danger passed, the queen stood tall once more, though her expression was far more troubled than before. She looked at Elias, her voice low but strong. "You placed yourself before me," she said. "You took the strike meant for my life." Elias, breathing heavily, gave a faint smile. "You are the hope of your people. That arrow couldn't be allowed to reach you." Her eyes narrowed slightly as though searching for any sign of falsehood, but all she found was honesty. She studied him for a long moment, then spoke quietly so only he could hear. "Few of my own kind would act so quickly, and yet you, a stranger, did so without thought. You are either the most reckless of men, or the most loyal." Elias managed a small chuckle, though his strength was fading. "Maybe both." The queen did not answer, but her gaze lingered on him, filled with something new, something Elias could not name. The attackers were dragged before her moments later. Hooded, armed with strange bows, they hissed in defiance. The guards pressed their weapons to their throats, awaiting the queen's command. "Take them to the dungeons," she ordered coldly. "They will answer for this with truth." The guards bowed and carried them away. By then, Elias could no longer stand. The poison had taken too much. He sank to his knees and the healers supported him. The queen stepped closer, her towering figure casting a shadow over him, yet her voice was soft. "You will not die here, Captain. Not after what you have done. You will live because I will it." Those were the last words Elias heard before the darkness claimed him. When he awoke again, he was lying on a bed of woven crystal threads, the air filled with the scent of herbs. His arm was bandaged with glowing vines, and the pain had dulled to a distant throb. A single figure stood nearby, watching him. It was Queen Saralith. Her voice was quiet but firm. "You live." "That is well. For what you have done, Captain Elias Grant, the court of Thalara will never forget." Elias blinked, struggling to sit up. It was nothing, but she silenced him with a single gesture. "Do not speak such words. You have changed something today. You may not see it yet, but all of Thalara will feel it. You shielded me from death, and for that, you have earned more than gratitude." Her gaze held his, strong and unbroken, as if the weight of an entire world rested behind it. Elias did not know what she meant yet, but in that moment he realized that his life, and perhaps the fate of two civilizations, had just shifted forever. When Elias opened his eyes again, he found himself surrounded by soft light. The walls glowed faintly as though alive, and vines spread across them, their leaves shining with a calming green hue. He was in a healing chamber, unlike any human hospital he had known. The air smelled faintly of sweet herbs and clean water. He tried to sit up, but pain burned in his arm. The bandages wrapped around the wound glowed faintly, threads of living energy woven into them. The poison had been slowed, but he could still feel weakness in his veins. A soft voice spoke, calm yet commanding. "You should not move. The venom still lingers, though my healers fight it." Elias turned his head and saw her. Queen Saralith stood near the edge of the chamber. Even without her crown, her presence filled the room. The soft light reflected off her emerald skin, and her eyes, deep and multifaceted, studied him carefully. "You are awake," she said, as if confirming to herself that he had survived. Elias managed a weak smile. "I suppose I am, though it feels like I have been hit by a shuttle." The queen tilted her head slightly, a gesture of curiosity. "You joke even when death brushed against you. Strange." "I find humor helps," Elias answered, his voice rough. For a long moment, There was silence. Then the queen stepped closer, her long robes whispering against the floor. She stopped beside his bed and lowered herself slightly, so her gaze was level with his. "You placed yourself before me," she said again, her voice softer this time. "You carried the wound meant for me. Why?" Elias thought for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "Because I couldn't stand there and watch you fall. You're not only the queen of Thalara, you're the hope of your people. Without you, everything here would break apart. That arrow had to stop somewhere. It stopped with me." Her expression did not change quickly, but her eyes seemed to shimmer faintly. "No soldier of mine has ever said such words. No guard has ever moved so swiftly. Yet you, a foreigner, did so without thought." "Maybe it's human nature," Elias said. "Or maybe it's just me. Either way, I'd do it again." For the first time since they had met, Saralith's stern face softened. "You are reckless. But your recklessness has saved me." Later that day, the chamber doors opened. Several members of the Royal Council entered. They were tall, insect-like beings in fine robes, their antennae moving with subtle gestures. Their voices carried a low hum as they spoke among themselves. The queen turned to them. "The human lives." One of the counselors, old and sharp-eyed, stepped forward. "Majesty, it is not safe. Already rumors spread through the city. They say a human stood before you while your own guards failed. They ask if he seeks to win your favor by design." Another counselor, younger but no less wary, added, "It is possible, Queen Saralith, that this was arranged. Perhaps the human is part of a greater plot. Perhaps this wound is but a mask to hide his ambition." Elias, though weak, forced himself upright. His voice was steady. "If I had planned this, I wouldn't be lying here half dead. That arrow burned like fire. Trust me, I didn't want it anywhere near me." The old counselor narrowed his eyes. "Words can deceive." The queen lifted her hand, silencing the room. Her gaze swept over her council. "Enough, I was there. I saw him move. No plan could have been so quick, no deception so true. He saved me because he chose to. Not because of politics, not because of schemes. His actions speak louder than suspicion." The counselors lowered their heads reluctantly. "As you will, Majesty," they said together, though Elias could still feel their distrust pressing on him. That evening, when the chamber was quiet again, Elias asked softly, "They don't trust me, do they?" The queen did not deny it. "Trust is not given easily here. Your kind has walked among the stars for a short time, but already many fear you. They see humans as ambitious, impatient, dangerous." Elias sighed. "They may not be wrong about that. We do push forward too fast sometimes, but not all of us come to take or to fight. Some of us just want peace." "Peace," the queen repeated slowly. "A rare word. Too rare." She moved to the window, looking out at the glowing city below. "You must understand, Captain Elias Grant. My people have known betrayal for centuries. Factions rise and fall. Enemies smile with honeyed words while sharpening their blades. Even now, those arrows came from my own court." Elias frowned. "You think someone inside ordered the attack?" Her head turned slightly. "I know it. No outsider could have entered the Garden of Dawn. Only those with keys of trust may step there, which means someone close to me wished for my death." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. Elias clenched his fists. "Then whoever it was, they're still planning something. You can't face this alone." She studied him quietly. "You would help me, even after what has already happened to you?" Elias nodded without hesitation. "I didn't come here just to speak words in meetings. If you're in danger, then so is peace. And if peace falls apart, then everything I came here to protect is lost." For a long time, Saralith said nothing. Then she gave a slow nod. "Perhaps I was right to see something in you." "Very well, Captain. You will walk beside me, not only as envoy, but as guardian. But know this, the path ahead is dangerous. The venom of betrayal cuts deeper than any arrow." The days that followed were tense. The story of the ambush spread quickly through the city. Everywhere Elias went, alien eyes followed him. Some looked with awe, others with suspicion. Children whispered his name, calling him the human shield. Merchants bowed slightly as he passed. Yet soldiers kept their hands near their weapons, ready for the smallest sign of threat. The queen, however, treated him differently. Each day she visited him in the garden or in the council chamber. She asked him about human customs, about how Earth chose its leaders, about why humans fought so fiercely for one another. In return, she shared pieces of Thalari culture, the songs of their ancestors, the sacred places hidden in the forests, the old tales of queens who united warring tribes. In those moments, Elias began to see her not only as a queen, but as a person, strong, wise, but also burdened with heavy responsibility. And in her eyes he began to notice something new, curiosity and perhaps even trust. But not all welcomed this change. One evening, as Elias walked the palace corridors, a guard approached him quietly. She bowed and spoke in a hushed voice. "Be careful, human. There are those who whisper that the queen grows too close to you. They say you charm her for power. They say she will forget her own kind for yours." Elias frowned. "That's not true. I don't want her throne. I don't want power." The guard's eyes glimmered. "I believe you. But belief is rare here. Many will not see what I see. Many will see only danger." Before Elias could answer, the guard bowed again and left, her warning heavy in his thoughts. The next day, the queen summoned the entire council. Elias stood at her side as she entered the chamber, her crown glowing faintly in the crystal light. The councilors bowed low, their antennae trembling with respect. When silence fell, the queen spoke. "Yesterday a human stood before me and took an arrow meant to end my life. He bled so that I would live. For this I owe him more than gratitude. I owe him honor." The chamber filled with murmurs. Some councilors bowed their heads in agreement, but others stiffened, their expressions grim. One spoke sharply. "Majesty, honor is one thing, but to lift a human above your own kind is dangerous. What message does this send to our people? That outsiders are more loyal than our guards? That we are weak?" Saralith's eyes glimmered like fire. "The message it sends is truth. That courage knows no race, no bloodline. That loyalty may be found in unexpected places. He saved me when others failed. That is not weakness. That is strength." Elias stood silently beside her, letting her words carry the weight. He could feel the tension in the room, the clash of tradition against change. Another counselor spoke more softly. "Perhaps it is not weakness, Majesty, but it is risk. To place trust in a foreigner is to place our future in uncertain hands." The queen raised her head high. "Then let it be uncertain. I will not ignore courage when it stands before me. Captain Elias Grant will remain at my side. Any who question it may challenge me directly." The chamber fell silent. None dared speak against her. That night Elias returned to his chamber, his mind restless. He had come here as an envoy, only to find himself caught in webs of suspicion and loyalty. He had saved the queen, but in doing so he had also painted a target on his own back. As he lay down, staring at the glowing ceiling, he thought of her words in the council. She had defended him before her people, even when it risked her authority. And he realized something. Gratitude was only the beginning. The bond between them was already becoming something far greater, though neither of them could yet see where it would lead. The days passed slowly, but the memory of the poisoned arrow never left the palace. Whispers filled the halls, carried on the voices of guards, servants, and courtiers. Some called Elias a hero, others a spy. Some said the queen had been saved by fate, while others muttered that fate had been twisted by foreign hands. Elias felt the weight of these whispers every time he walked through the crystal corridors. Eyes followed him everywhere, some filled with respect, others with suspicion. Yet no matter how heavy their stares became, the queen's presence gave him strength. She had stood beside him in the council chamber and declared her trust openly. That trust was a shield stronger than any armor. But Elias knew that trust alone would not stop the next arrow. Somewhere within the palace walls, traitors were waiting, sharpening their blades in the dark. One evening, Queen Saralith summoned him to her private garden. The space was quiet, hidden beneath flowering trees that glowed faintly in the moonlight. The air was warm, filled with the sound of gentle water flowing through crystal channels. She stood at the center, her robe trailing softly behind her, her crown removed. "You wish to see me, Majesty?" Elias asked, bowing slightly. She turned, her eyes calm but sharp. "Yes, the council grows restless. Some fear your presence. Others use it as a weapon against me. But none of that matters compared to what we must face." Elias stepped closer. "You mean the assassins?" She nodded. "The attackers confessed nothing. Their tongues were sealed with death. Poison took them before my guards could question them. This means they were pawns, and pawns always serve greater masters." Elias folded his arms. "So the conspiracy is bigger than just a few killers." "Yes," she said. "It reaches into the council itself. I can feel it. Some of those who bow to me in daylight sharpen daggers when night falls. If I cannot uncover them, they will strike again, and next time they may succeed. Her gaze met his, steady and unbroken. That is why I need you. You are the only one they do not yet understand. You are the only piece of this game that does not belong to them. Elias frowned. You're asking me to hunt traitors inside your court. I am asking you to walk beside me to see with different eyes, she replied. They know my guards. They know my counsel. But they do not know you. That ignorance may be our weapon. Elias thought about it. His mission had begun as simple diplomacy, not secret investigations. But he had already stepped into danger once, and he knew he could not step back now. You'll have me at your side, he said firmly. But if we're going to do this, we'll need to be careful. If the traitors suspect us, they'll strike faster. The Queen inclined her head, a faint smile touching her lips. Then we will move like shadows, together. The investigation began quietly. By day, Elias continued his role as envoy, walking beside the Queen in the council chamber, answering questions about human worlds and cultures. By night, he and Saralith walked hidden paths through the palace, speaking in hushed voices, studying records and secrets. The Queen revealed to him the network of power within Thalara, the noble families, the warrior clans, the ancient houses that had long fought for dominance. Some of them wanted peace with humans, seeing trade and alliance as a chance for growth. Others wanted nothing but war, fearing that humans would one day outnumber and outfight them. It is those who cling to fear who most likely seek my death, Saralith explained. If I fall, peace dies with me, and fear will rule again. Elias listened carefully. He could see how deep the roots of division ran. Humans had their own politics, their own betrayals, but this was different. On Thalara, loyalty to family and clan was often stronger than loyalty to crown. As they dug deeper, Elias began to notice patterns. Documents were missing from archives. Guards were moved without reason. Supply shipments arrived late or vanished completely. Each small piece by itself meant nothing, but together they painted a picture. Someone within the palace was working to weaken the Queen's rule. One night, Elias and Saralith entered a hidden chamber beneath the palace. The air was cool and filled with dust, the walls lined with old records carved into crystal tablets. Saralith's hand glowed faintly as she passed it over the surface, unlocking ancient locks. These records are from before my reign, she explained. Few know they exist, but within them may lie the names of those who dream of my death. They worked together for hours, Elias reading through translations while Saralith explained the coded symbols of her people. Slowly, a trail began to form, a line of names connected to stolen resources, missing soldiers, and secret gatherings. At the center of it all was one name, Counselor Vaynar, the old, sharp-eyed alien who had spoken against Elias during the council meeting. Elias clenched his fists. I knew he didn't trust me. But this is more than distrust. He's been plotting against you for years. Saralith's eyes narrowed. He hides his venom well. But venom, no matter how hidden, leaves traces. If Vaynar is behind this, then the poisoned arrow was only his first strike. They looked at each other in the dim light of the chamber. The truth was dangerous, but they had found it together. The next day, the Queen held another council session. Elias stood at her side, his face calm though his mind burned with what they had discovered. Vaynar was present, his antennae twitching with false respect as he bowed. His voice was smooth, almost mocking. Majesty, again you bring the human into our sacred chamber. Are we to believe he is now one of us? Saralith's expression remained serene. Captain Elias Grant stands beside me because he has earned his place with blood. His loyalty is proven, while yours? She paused just long enough for the council to feel the weight of her words. Remains to be seen. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Vaynar's eyes flickered, but he bowed again. As always, Majesty, my loyalty is to the crown. Elias said nothing, but he caught the faintest twitch of Vaynar's mandibles. It was enough. That night, Saralith and Elias prepared for the next step. We cannot accuse him without proof, she said. If we move too soon, the council will see only politics, not truth. We must force him to reveal himself. Elias nodded. Then we set a trap. Together they devised a plan. Rumors would be spread. False whispers that the Queen would travel to a remote shrine outside the city, with only a handful of guards. If Vaynar was behind the assassins, he would not resist such an opportunity. The risk was great. If they were wrong, Sarilith would walk into danger for nothing. But if they were right, the traitors would reveal themselves. Elias looked at her as they finalized the plan. This could be dangerous. For both of us. The Queen met his gaze without fear. Danger has already found us. Better that we walk into it with open eyes than wait for it to strike again. The following evening, the Queen left the palace under the cover of twilight. She wore a simple cloak, her crown left behind. Elias rode beside her in a small carriage drawn by crystal-winged beasts. Only a handful of guards followed, their weapons hidden beneath their robes. The shrine lay in a quiet valley surrounded by glowing trees. The air was peaceful, almost too peaceful. Elias kept his hand near the small blade hidden in his uniform, his eyes scanning the shadows. Then, just as he expected, the peace broke. Figures emerged from the forest, cloaked and armed. Boughs glimmered in the moonlight, their tips glowing with the same poison as before. Voices hissed commands in the alien tongue. Elias leapt from the carriage, drawing his weapon. The guards formed a protective circle around the Queen. Arrows flew, striking the ground and shattering against shields. But Elias saw something more. At the back of the attackers, standing tall and unmasked, was Counselor Vaynar himself. His eyes gleamed with triumph as he pointed his weapon toward the Queen. Elias shouted, "It's him! The traitor!" The Queen's eyes widened, her anger shining like fire. "Vaynar!" she cried. The ambush erupted into chaos. Guards clashed with assassins, weapons striking against crystal armor. Elias fought fiercely, cutting down attackers who tried to break through to the Queen. His arm still burned from the old wound, but he ignored the pain, his focus locked on keeping her safe. At the center of the battle, Sarilith stood tall, her voice commanding her warriors with strength and authority. She was no helpless ruler, she was a queen born for battle. Together, she and Elias fought side by side, and together they drove back the traitors. At last, Vaynar was captured, his hands bound in glowing chains. His eyes burned with hatred as he was dragged before the Queen. "You betrayed your crown," she said coldly. "You spilled venom into the heart of Thalara." Vaynar spat in defiance. "Better venom than weakness. Peace with humans will destroy us." "You are blind, Sarilith." The Queen's gaze hardened. "No, Vaynar. I see more clearly than you ever did. And I see that Thalara's future does not belong to traitors." She turned to Elias. "You uncovered the truth. You stood with me when all others doubted. This court will remember it." Elias, breathing heavily from the fight, nodded. "I only did what was right." But inside he knew the bond between them had deepened. No longer were they only Queen and envoy. They were allies bound by trust, forged in the fire of danger. And though the conspiracy had been revealed, Elias sensed the story was far from over. For when trust grows, so too do expectations, and Sarilith had begun to see him not just as a shield, but as something far greater. The palace was quiet in the early morning, though the air still carried the tension from the night before. Counselor Vaynar had been imprisoned in the palace dungeons, and his followers were either captured or had fled into the forests. For now the threat seemed contained, yet Queen Sarilith knew that danger never rested for long. Elias Grant, still recovering from the battle, walked beside her through the palace corridors. His arm ached where the poison had burned, but his resolve had only strengthened. Together they had uncovered a plot that could have ended the Queen's life, and together they had defeated it. The Queen's gaze was distant, her steps measured. "Captain," she said quietly, "you have proven yourself in ways that no envoy or guard could have imagined. But there is more to consider." Elias glanced at her. "More? We've already faced assassination, uncovered the traitors, and survived. What else is there?" Her lips curved in a faint smile. "The eyes of my people. They watch us now, not only those who serve me, but those who wish to see me fail. They will question every move I make, every decision I take, especially one that involves you." Elias nodded. He understood. In Thalara, loyalty was never simple. A single misstep could undo years of careful rule. Then we proceed carefully, but we cannot ignore what has already been done. I will not step back when you need me. Sarilith stopped walking and turned to him fully, her tall frame silhouetted against the light of the crystal-lined hallway. "Nor will I step back, Captain. You have already become part of this court, part of this kingdom, and I have begun to see that perhaps in some way you belong to my world as much as I belong to it. The words hung in the air, heavier than any crystal chandelier. Elias felt a rush of emotion but kept his voice calm. I only wish to serve, Your Majesty, to protect you and to help your people find peace. Her eyes held his for a long moment, unreadable yet full of meaning. And yet your presence has done more than serve or protect. It has changed the way my people see me. It has shown them that courage is not limited by birth, that loyalty is not limited by blood. For this I owe you more than words. Elias swallowed hard. I did what I had to do. That is all. No, she said softly. It is not all. You have given me trust where there was only doubt, hope where there was only fear. You have stood beside me when others would have turned away. You have proven that humanity is capable of great courage. For the first time, Elias realized the depth of the bond forming between them. It was no longer merely political. It was personal. The Queen led him to the council chamber later that day. The counselors were tense, still adjusting to the knowledge of the conspiracy. Their eyes flicked between Elias and Saralith, some with awe, some with caution, others with suspicion. Saralith raised her hand to call for silence. Counselors, she began, her voice clear and commanding. The events of the past nights have revealed truth and deception alike. A plot against the crown has been uncovered. The traitors have been punished, and the Queen stands alive because of courage and loyalty. All eyes turned to Elias. He bowed slightly, as if acknowledging the unspoken praise. Saralith continued, her voice firm. This loyalty has proven itself not only to me, but to all of Thalara. Captain Elias Grant has shown that courage transcends species, that loyalty can be found in unexpected places. That strength is not measured by birth, but by action, the council murmured among themselves. Some nodded, others shifted uneasily, and a few still looked skeptical. And yet, the Queen said, her gaze sweeping over the room, there is something more I must do. Something that will bind our people together and ensure that peace and unity endure. Elias felt a chill of anticipation. He did not yet know what she meant, but he sensed it would change everything. Later, in the privacy of her chambers, Saralith spoke more openly. Captain, I have made a decision, one that may surprise you, perhaps even unsettle you. Elias leaned forward, attentive. I will follow your guidance, Your Majesty. She hesitated for a moment, as if weighing the weight of her words. Then she said softly, I propose that you become my consort, that you join me not only as protector and advisor, but as partner, bound by a union that will unite our peoples. Elias blinked, momentarily stunned. Consort, as in marriage? He asked carefully. Yes, she replied, her voice calm but resolute. In the traditions of Thalara, this union is more than personal. It is a bond of trust, courage, and alliance. It will signal to all that humans and Thalari can stand together not as strangers but as partners. It will strengthen my rule and ensure that peace is not fragile but enduring. Elias struggled to find words. The proposal was unexpected, even overwhelming. He had come to Thalara as an envoy, not to entwine his life with the Queen. Yet looking at her now, he saw not only authority but trust and perhaps even affection. You are offering me not only honor but responsibility beyond anything I imagined, he said quietly. Saralith nodded. Yes, and I believe you are capable of it. You have already proven yourself in ways that many of my own kind cannot. You have stood beside me and you have acted without hesitation when the kingdom needed you. I trust you, and I wish the council and my people to see that trust as well. The following days were filled with preparation. The Queen consulted with her council, explaining the reasoning behind the proposal, emphasizing the loyalty and courage Elias had shown. Some counselors still resisted, uncomfortable with the idea of a human holding such a place of importance. Others, however, began to see the wisdom in it. Elias, meanwhile, trained alongside the royal guards, familiarizing himself with Thalari customs, combat techniques, and the etiquette of the palace. He was not a student of ceremony by nature, but he knew that every step he took now could influence the future of two civilizations. At night, he and Saralith walked together through the gardens, discussing the future, the threat still lingering, and the vision they shared for peace. Slowly, Elias began to understand not only the political weight of the proposal, but also the personal bond growing between them. I did not expect this, he admitted one evening as they strolled among glowing flowers. I came here to protect you, to help my people and yours. I never imagined This Saralith smiled faintly. Neither did I. And yet the heart chooses in ways the mind cannot predict. You have become more than a protector to me, Elias. You are a companion, a witness to my fears and my strengths, and I wish for that to continue in a way that binds us and our people together. Elias looked at her, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine a life beyond duty, a life of partnership, trust, and shared purpose. The announcement to the court came at sunrise. The palace corridors were filled with the hum of anticipation. When the queen entered the council chamber, Elias stood beside her, his posture straight, his mind alert. Saralith spoke with authority. Counselors of Thalara, citizens of the kingdom, hear me. Captain Elias Grant has proven his courage, his loyalty, and his commitment to our people. He has acted when others hesitated, protected when others faltered, and stood by me when all seemed lost. For these reasons, I ask him to join me as my consort, to bind our fates and our peoples together in unity. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Some counselors whispered to each other, unsure how to respond. Others nodded slowly, beginning to see the wisdom of the queen's decision. Elias bowed slightly, his voice calm. I accept your majesty, not for honor, not for power, but for trust, for peace, and for the bond we have forged together. The queen's face softened, a rare smile breaking across her features. Then let it be known to all who hear this that we walk forward as partners, not only for ourselves, but for the future of Thalara and humanity. Outside the palace, word of the proposal spread quickly. Citizens gathered, listening to the announcement, debating its meaning. Many were inspired. If a human and the Thalari queen could unite, then perhaps other barriers could be broken. Some remained skeptical, fearing change, but even they could not deny the courage that had brought Elias to this moment. That night, as the sun set over the glowing forests, Elias and Saralith stood together on the palace balcony. The city lights reflected in their eyes, a symbol of the unity they hoped to build. You have changed my world, Saralith said softly, and perhaps you have changed me as well. Elias took her hand gently. We will face whatever comes together, and we will stand, not as human and alien, but as partners. Saralith nodded, her eyes shining with both resolve and something deeper, something that had grown through shared trials and trust. For the first time since the ambush, Elias felt a sense of calm. The path ahead would be challenging, but for the first time, it was a path they would walk together. And though threats still lingered, though shadows still whispered of betrayal, Elias knew that the bond between him and the queen had grown stronger than any poison, stronger than any plot. Together, they would shape the future of their worlds. Together, they would bring hope to Thalara. The morning sun cast its gentle glow over the crystal spires of Thalara, bathing the palace in shades of gold and emerald. The city had never looked so alive. Its people moved through the streets with curiosity and hope, whispering about the union between the queen and the human captain. Captain Elias Grant stood on the balcony of the palace beside Queen Saralith. The wind carried the scent of flowers, and the soft hum of the city beneath them seemed like a living heartbeat. Though he had trained for battles, studied diplomacy, and endured poison, nothing had prepared him for this moment. He was no longer just an envoy or a soldier. He was a partner to a queen, tasked with a responsibility greater than anything he had imagined. Saralith's hand rested lightly on his arm. Her eyes, glowing softly in the morning light, held a depth that both reassured and humbled him. Elias, she said quietly, do you understand what this means? Not just for us, but for all who watch us? He nodded slowly. I do. It means that we must lead by example, that our bond must show trust, courage, and unity, that our people must see what is possible when loyalty and respect guide decisions. She smiled faintly. You speak well, but the path will not be easy. Old fears die slowly. Some will resist, some will doubt, and some may even try to test us. Elias clenched his fist slightly. Then we will meet those tests together, side by side, as partners. Saralith nodded, her expression solemn but proud. Yes, side by side. The first weeks after the proposal were filled with both celebration and caution. The Queen held council meetings with renewed confidence, openly demonstrating the alliance between human and Thalari. Elias attended each session, not as a guest but as a participant. He learned the intricacies of Thalari law, the traditions that had shaped their society for millennia, and the unspoken rules of diplomacy that guided every word spoken in the council chambers. Some counselors still watched him warily, questioning whether a human could truly grasp the depth of Thalari customs. Others, however, had begun to recognize the wisdom of Saralith's choice. Elias was not there to dominate, to command, or to replace tradition. He was there to learn, to support, and to act when courage was needed. In quiet moments, the Queen and Elias would walk through the palace gardens, discussing strategy, peace, and the future. Their conversations were no longer formal. They spoke openly about trust, responsibility, and the lives they hoped to shape together. "You have done more than I ever expected," Saralith told him one evening as glowing petals drifted around them. "You have shown my people that humanity is capable of honor, courage, and loyalty. You have given me not only safety, but hope." Elias looked at her, humbled. "I only did what anyone would do in my place. I did not expect recognition nor reward." Her eyes softened. "Perhaps not, but the truth cannot be hidden. Your actions speak louder than words, and they have changed more than the course of my life. They have changed the course of Thalara itself." The people of Thalara began to respond. In marketplaces, humans and Thalari met to trade goods and knowledge. Stories spread of the human who had shielded the Queen from death, and who now stood beside her as a symbol of unity. Children played together in the streets, humans and aliens learning the ways of each other, while elders whispered that perhaps the old fears could finally fade. But not all was peaceful. Some factions remained suspicious of the Union. Old rivalries simmered in quiet corners, plotting and watching for weaknesses. Elias and Saralith knew that vigilance was necessary. The Queen could not ignore dissent, and Elias could not let her face danger alone. One afternoon, while walking through a quiet corridor of the palace, Elias overheard two counselors whispering in concern. "Do you think the human will last?" One asked. "He has courage," and the other replied. "But can he survive the politics? Can he survive the expectations?" Elias smiled faintly. They did not know him, nor did they yet understand that loyalty and courage were not limited to Thalari. Then came the test. A message arrived from the outer provinces. Rebels who had resisted the Queen's rule were gathering forces. They had heard of the human consort and saw an opportunity to challenge her authority, claiming that Thalara had been weakened by alliance with outsiders. Saralith did not hesitate. "We will meet them not with fear but with strength, and we will show them that our unity is our power." Elias joined her in planning the defense. Together they studied maps of the province, calculated supply routes, and devised strategies that combined human tactics with Thalari methods. When the day of confrontation arrived, Saralith led her forces personally with Elias at her side. Their soldiers moved with precision, striking where rebels least expected, using both the bravery of humans and the discipline of Thalari warriors. The battle was fierce, but not cruel. The goal was not to destroy, but to show strength and offer a chance for surrender. And in the end, the rebels laid down their arms, persuaded not by fear, but by the unity and leadership displayed by the Queen and her human consort. After the victory, the people of the province gathered to witness the alliance firsthand. Saralith addressed them, her voice strong and resonant. "Look upon this unity," she said, gesturing to Elias. "Here stands a human, beside your Queen. He fought not for power, not for glory, but for justice, courage, and peace. Let this be a lesson to all who doubt. Loyalty and courage are not bound by species, but by heart and deed." The crowd erupted in approval. Humans and Thalari alike cheered. For the first time, Elias saw a future where differences were celebrated, not feared. As evening fell, Elias and Saralith returned to the palace. They walked through the gardens in silence, listening to the soft hum of the city below. "You have changed everything," Elias said quietly. "And you have shown me that trust can be real, even across worlds," Saralith replied. "Together we have proven that courage can inspire more than fear, and that loyalty can unite more than it divides." Elias paused, looking at her. "I never imagined this when I first came here. I only wanted to protect you. I didn't know I would become part of your world." "You have become more than part of my world," Saralith said softly. "You have become a part of my life, and through that, a part of the future of Thalara itself." Elias took her hand. "Then we will face whatever comes together. I will stand with you always." She smiled, the soft glow of the garden reflecting in her eyes. "And I with you. Together we will guide our people, build trust, and bring hope where there was fear." In the following months, the alliance between humans and Thalari deepened. Trade and knowledge flowed between their worlds. Schools and academies welcomed students of both species. Cities were rebuilt with cooperation and care, and festivals celebrated courage, unity, and trust. Elias and Sarilith worked tirelessly, not only as ruler and consort but as partners, learning from one another, advising their people, and ensuring that peace was not fragile but enduring. The bond between them became a symbol of hope. Citizens spoke of the human who had shielded the queen from death and had chosen to stay, not for power but for loyalty and courage. The story inspired future generations to act with bravery and integrity, regardless of their origin. One quiet evening, as they stood once more on the palace balcony, Sarilith looked out over the glowing city. "Do you ever wonder," she asked, "if it could have been different? If the poisoned arrow had struck?" Elias shook his head. "No. Fate brought me here, yes, but choice is what shaped the future. I chose to protect you. You chose to trust me. And together, we chose to build something stronger than fear." Her eyes softened and she rested her head lightly on his shoulder. "Then our choices have given Thalara a future filled with hope, not just survival." Elias smiled, feeling the warmth of both her presence and the city around them. "Then we will continue to choose wisely, together." The night settled over Thalara, peaceful and bright. Stars twinkled above, mirrored by the glowing rivers and towers below. For the first time in centuries, the city felt truly safe, guided by courage, loyalty, and the unity of two worlds. And as Elias and Sarilith looked out at the horizon, they knew this was only the beginning. The future would bring new challenges, but they would face them as partners, as allies, as friends, and as something more. For the first time, humanity had left its mark not through conquest but through courage, and Thalara had been forever changed by it.